It was the early 1960s, and Hines Farm was one of the premier blues clubs in the country. Located in northwest Ohio, in a rural community just outside Toledo, it featured a who's who of blues, jazz, and rhythm and blues entertainers.
We used to play out there quite often. Sometimes it seemed to me about 2 or 3 times a year. And if I can remember correctly, they had good food out there. Sometimes they'd have ball games, and sometimes 2 or 3 bands that would play, especially on the weekends. And they had good music and pretty girls.
It wasn't a lot of money, but it was a lot of fun, a lot of good people. And you'd have a good old time down there, just hang out down there, just kind of like a party thing. I wouldn't call it just a show. I just call it we just having a party.
But Hines Farm was more than just a nightclub. This 40-acre farm was a cultural center for African Americans in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. People came from Detroit, Toledo, and other Ohio cities to watch Negro League baseball teams, to participate in motorcycle races, and to hear good music. The idea of Hines Farm grew out of the minds of 2 young local entrepreneurs, Frank and Sarah Hines.
It brings back a lot of memories, you know, especially with the old jug joint back in the woods there. That was one about the only one that was legal, you know, that sold, you know, beer and whiskey and that type of thing. The rest of the guys, they was illegal. You know, there was a lot of bootleggers around here. And the bootleggers really gave Hines the blues.
You know, once upon a time, back in the backwoods of Delta, Mississippi, lived a family that had a son who couldn't talk so good. But every morning around daybreak, Mama get up, ask the kids, what y'all want for breakfast? Mama, we want some butter and toast. Get around a little boy. He said, Mom, I want some butter. Lord, what am I going to do with my child? Little boy couldn't do no better. So just packed a little flour sack and he left home. He came up on a rolling mill.
I do remember that if you walk in, it's open. Now, I can't see it, and I'm going by memory here. It's open, like you can just step in from the middle of it on the side, just climb over the railing. And then the cement floor, and then they had a big round jukebox. One of them old-fashioned boys, you know, put a nickel in and play your record. And then they had the little area where they had a big barbecue pit. That's where they barbecued, did they barbecuing. Then they had another area where they sold beer and, you know, refreshments and stuff like that.
He said, long as I got a home for your son, you can live as long as you want. The story of Mr. Charlie.
In 1957, Frank and Sarah Hines began building a one-of-a-kind blues club near the front of their property next to their home. When it opened, the Hines Farm Blues Club provided more room for the bands and patrons, and it could be used year-round. It also featured a soul food kitchen and hotel space for bands to sleep over.
My uncle decided that he wanted a bar, a bigger bar. And once they got this built, they had a grand opening, and the place was packed. People had to walk for miles down the road to get here.
The 60s was hard for live musicians. Very hard. Then folks had gotten into, what we call the canned music. They got more into the jukebox kind of things. And then there was so much social unrest in the 60s for Toledo. And that had a lot to do with a change of attitudes and businesses surviving.
The little clubs couldn't afford you. And if the ones could afford you, nobody would come, because they wanted to go to a rock and roll show, or what we used to call a big show. I remember shows that they had Sam Cooke, they had Jackie Wilson, both on the same bill, and then they would have so and so and so and so, and then B.B. King. So I still would get a chance to be seen, wasn't making much money, but at least you were there. But if you went to Club 400 or something, and there's a big show somewhere, nobody's there.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away.
Hines Farm closed in 1976, and Sarah Hines died a few years later in 1978. Frank Hines passed away 3 years later in 1981.